A man died nearly 90 years ago. Yet by many historical estimates, he remains one of the richest individuals in modern history. Not Elon Musk, not Jeff Bezos, not Bill Gates. And here's the part that sounds almost impossible. He didn't invent the internet. He didn't build electric cars. He didn't create artificial intelligence. He sold oil. But he didn't just sell oil. He built a business empire so powerful that it controlled nearly an entire industry, dictated prices, negotiated directly with railroad executives, and became so dominant that the United States government eventually used antitrust law to break it apart. Think about that. An entire nation's government had to step in because one company had become too powerful. At its peak, his empire refined more than 90% of America's oil and grew into one of the most influential corporations ever created. And the most astonishing part? Breaking up his company didn't make him poorer. It made him even richer. The strategies he pioneered nearly a century ago still shape some of the world's largest corporations and continue to influence how modern business empires are built. This is the story of Standard Oil, and the story of the man who turned a 50-cent-a-day bookkeeping job into one of the greatest fortunes in human history, John Davison Rockefeller. Ironically, one of history's greatest monopolies began in one of the most unusual households imaginable. John D. Rockefeller was born on July 8, 1839, in Richford, New York. His father, William Avery Rockefeller, called himself a botanic physician. In reality, he traveled from town to town selling questionable remedies and miracle medicines. He was charismatic, persuasive, and exceptionally good at convincing people to buy things they probably didn't need. He was also rarely home. For weeks at a time, he would simply disappear. He maintained relationships with multiple women and fathered children outside his marriage. Eventually, some of those family members ended up living under the same roof. Imagine being a child and trying to make sense of all of that. But strangely enough, this unusual upbringing shaped John Rockefeller in profound ways. From his father, he learned the importance of negotiation and persuasion. From his mother, Eliza Rockefeller, he learned discipline, hard work, and frugality. Years later, Rockefeller would say that he inherited his father's business instincts and his mother's self-control. The combination proved extraordinarily powerful. The Rockefeller family moved constantly and rarely stayed in one place for very long. Stability was something John barely knew. To help support the family, he began earning money at a very young age. He raised turkeys, he performed odd jobs, he worked for neighbors, and he occasionally lent small sums of money and charged interest. Unlike most children, he carefully recorded every cent he earned and every cent he spent. Money fascinated him. He wasn't obsessed with spending it. He was fascinated by how it moved, how it grew, and how it could multiply. Without realizing it, the young boy was already training himself to become an investor and businessman. And within a few years, he would encounter an opportunity that would change his life forever. In 1854, the Rockefeller family moved to Cleveland, Ohio. For the first time in his life, John had the opportunity to attend a proper school. He proved to be intelligent, disciplined, and particularly gifted with numbers. But formal education did not hold his interest for very long. Instead, he became increasingly attracted to business. At 16 years old, he began looking for work. Finding a job was not easy. For weeks, he walked from office to office asking for employment opportunities. Eventually, he was hired as an assistant bookkeeper by a produce brokerage firm. His salary was 50 cents per day. The work was demanding, but Rockefeller loved it. He learned bookkeeping, accounting, negotiation, and commercial operations. Most importantly, he learned how businesses actually functioned. Years later, he would remember the date he got this job, almost like a second birthday.
But after working faithfully for 2 years, something happened that deeply affected him. His employers refused to give him a meaningful raise. Most people would have accepted the disappointment and continued working. John Rockefeller made a different decision. He decided that he would never spend his entire life building someone else's fortune. At just 18 years old, he started his own produce brokerage business. People trusted him. Bankers trusted him. Suppliers trusted him. Even older businessmen respected his reliability and discipline. His reputation became so strong that he secured a loan worth $4,000, a huge amount of money in the 1850s. Together with his business partners, he began trading hay, grain, and meat. In his very first year, the company generated nearly $500,000 in sales. Rockefeller was barely an adult, and already banks across Cleveland wanted to lend him money. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. But the opportunity that would define his life wasn't hidden in grain, meat, or produce. It was hidden inside a strange black liquid coming out of the ground in Pennsylvania. In 1859, the first commercially successful American oil well was drilled in Titusville, Pennsylvania. The discovery marked the beginning of America's oil age and would eventually reshape the global economy. Almost overnight, thousands of people rushed to Pennsylvania, hoping to become rich. It was one of America's first major resource booms. People sold businesses. Investors poured money into drilling operations. Everyone wanted oil. And John Rockefeller was watching. He noticed something that many others failed to see. The people drilling for oil were taking enormous risks. Some became wealthy. Many went bankrupt. Success depended heavily on luck. You either found oil or you didn't. That kind of uncertainty made Rockefeller uncomfortable. He preferred businesses that could be controlled and calculated. Then he saw the opportunity. At the time, gasoline had almost no value. Automobiles did not exist. But crude oil could be refined into kerosene, which was rapidly replacing whale oil as a major source of lighting. Demand for affordable lighting was increasing rapidly across homes and businesses, and somebody had to turn crude oil into kerosene. Rockefeller realized he didn't need to gamble on finding oil. He could simply buy oil from the people who discovered it. Others would take the risks. He would build the system that profited from their success. It was an insight that would eventually make him one of the wealthiest individuals in history. But Rockefeller wasn't merely planning to build a refinery. He was quietly building something much larger, a system
that competitors would eventually find almost impossible to escape. In 1863, a railroad connected Pennsylvania's oil fields with Cleveland. Most people saw railroad tracks. John Rockefeller saw an empire. He moved quickly. While thousands of people rushed to find oil, he was assembling something far more powerful, a machine designed to refine, transport, and sell petroleum more efficiently than anyone else. He assembled investors, he secured financing, and he recruited talented chemists and engineers. Their mission wasn't simply to refine oil. It was to refine oil better than everyone else. At the time, refineries wasted enormous amounts of petroleum. Rockefeller hated waste. His team continuously improved production methods and found commercial uses for byproducts that competitors simply discarded. Paraffin was used in candle production. Tar found industrial applications. Naphtha became valuable in manufacturing and chemical processes. Every possible output was monetized. Every expense was questioned. Every process was improved. Competitors saw barrels of oil. Rockefeller saw a system. He became obsessed with efficiency. He negotiated aggressively. He cut unnecessary costs, and he constantly reinvested profits back into the business. Within just 2 years, his refinery became one of the largest and most profitable operations in Cleveland. But Rockefeller had no interest in being one successful refinery among dozens of competitors. He wanted scale. He wanted dominance. At the time, Cleveland had 26 competing refineries. 5 years later, Rockefeller had acquired or consolidated all but 4 of them. Some owners sold because they couldn't compete. Others sold because Rockefeller made them extraordinarily attractive offers. He invited competitors into his office and showed them his financial records. He demonstrated that his costs were lower, his systems were more efficient, and his resources were greater. Then he gave them a choice: fight him and risk losing everything, or join him and share in his success. Many chose to join him, and Rockefeller welcomed them. He didn't simply buy refineries. He absorbed talent. He gathered some of the industry's brightest minds under one organization. In 1870, he incorporated a new company. Its name was Standard Oil. And within a few years, that name would become one of the most famous and controversial in business history. Rockefeller had built one of the largest refineries in America. But he was no longer trying to build a successful company. He was beginning to build something much bigger: a monopoly. For competitors who still resisted, Rockefeller had another advantage. The scale and efficiency of Standard Oil allowed it to operate at lower costs than many of its rivals. The company repeatedly lowered the price of kerosene, placing enormous pressure on competitors. One by one, rival firms disappeared. By 1880, Standard Oil refined more than 90% of America's oil. 90%. Imagine one company controlling almost an entire industry. Rockefeller became one of the railroad's largest customers and negotiated substantial transportation rebates directly with their executives. He built pipelines. He expanded storage facilities. He improved distribution networks. Every year, Standard Oil became larger, more efficient, and more influential. Eventually, people began to fear its power.
Industrialists worried that if Rockefeller could dominate oil, someone else might eventually dominate their industries too. Newspapers attacked him. Politicians attacked him. Business leaders attacked him. Standard Oil had become so influential that many Americans feared its dominance over an essential industry. But Rockefeller continued expanding. In 1882, he reorganized his empire into the Standard Oil Trust, a structure that controlled dozens of companies operating across multiple states. At its peak, Standard Oil controlled thousands of oil wells, thousands of miles of pipeline, and employed more than 100,000 people. It was one of the largest and most sophisticated business empires the world had ever seen. Standard Oil looked unstoppable. Yet the very size that made Rockefeller powerful was about to create enemies powerful enough to challenge him. By the late 19th century, new oil fields had been discovered in Russia and Asia. International competition was increasing. At the same time, public hostility toward monopolies was reaching unprecedented levels. Then, in 1890, the United States government passed the Sherman Antitrust Act. For the first time, politicians possessed a legal weapon powerful enough to challenge Standard Oil. The investigations lasted for years. The company's complex network of subsidiaries and holdings made the investigation long and difficult. Finally, in 1911, the United States Supreme Court delivered its decision. Standard Oil was declared an illegal monopoly. The court ordered the company to be divided into 34 independent companies. To many observers, it looked like the end of Rockefeller's empire. It wasn't. By this point, Rockefeller had already stepped away from active management. More importantly, he still owned substantial shares in the companies that emerged from the breakup. Then something remarkable happened. Those independent companies continued growing. Some eventually became giant corporations in their own right. Among Standard Oil's most notable descendants are ExxonMobil, Chevron, Marathon Petroleum, and Amoco, which later became part of BP. As their values increased, Rockefeller's wealth increased with them. Ironically, the breakup dramatically increased the value of Rockefeller's holdings and became one of the most financially beneficial events of his life. By modern estimates, John D. Rockefeller's fortune reached nearly $400 billion. Even today, almost a century after his death, only a handful of individuals have approached the level of wealth he accumulated. The richest businessmen of the modern era built software companies, e-commerce empires, and technology platforms. Rockefeller built pipelines, refineries, and distribution networks. He wasn't an inventor. He wasn't an engineer. He wasn't even an oil driller. He was a strategist. He understood something that many entrepreneurs and investors still overlook today. Sometimes, the greatest fortunes are not made by chasing the opportunity everyone sees. They're made by controlling the systems that everyone else depends on. John Rockefeller began as a bookkeeper, earning 50 cents a day. And he ended his life having built one of the greatest business empires the world has ever known. Nearly a century later, historians and economists still debate whether anyone has truly surpassed the fortune he accumulated.